These bulbs were planted roughly 3 weeks ago. They are not supposed to be germinating or flowering, but as you can see, I have both. And all of these are spring bulbs. I'll put an iCard so you can see my part 1 when I planted these. My garden adventures wouldn't be my garden adventures without the dogs. So you'll see them periodically popping in, putting their faces smack dab in front of the camera because these girls want to be seen. I still have a box load of bulbs that I need to plant, so I'm going to sprinkle them around in the garden in several containers. In this container, I have coleus and ashwagandha, so I'm going to add some bulb tone, and then I'm going to add my saffron crocus. This pot was already topped off with compost and leaves. So I have a sneaky suspicion that I probably already sown some flower seeds that needed to overwinter. We'll see in springtime if I get anything, because to be honest, I don't remember. These saffron bulbs have been in this box for at least 3 weeks, and I've had them for well over a month. So it's time to get them planted. It's past time to get them planted. I can already see through the bag, they've begun to sprout. What I tell you, they've put on a tremendous amount of growth. Because they've been in the bag, they were confused, so they're sprouting from areas they shouldn't be sprouting from. Every bulb has a top and a bottom, and these are sprouting from the side and pushing upward from the top. So if you look at this bulb right here, it actually needs to be planted upside down. So I'll be placing it with its head down and its bottom up because that's how it's growing out of this bulb. This is a good example of showing you how bulbs will flip themselves around if you've planted them upside down. They already know somehow what side is the right side up. My goal is not to snap off any of this new growth. Try to get them in the pots, planted up correctly. I'm not going to push down the soil once I get them covered over. I'm going to water them in and let the soil rest around them because as you can see, there is a lot of growth. I have 15 bulbs to plant in this planter. I am going to place these bulbs in little bunches around the edge of this pot and even in the center until I've planted all of my bulbs, and then I'll move on to the next container. Even though I would like my bulbs not to be germinating right now because it's not the right time, I'm happy to see that they all are. That lets me know that they're viable. And oh, by the way, I just might get a harvest when they produce. If you're not aware of what saffron is a spice. It is very expensive. I'll put some information down in the description box below so that you can get an idea of what saffron is and maybe you can include it in your dishes. I like to make saffron rice. It is so delicious. I hope you get a chance to grow you some saffron and try it for yourself. Looks like I have some surprise clover on this side, just a small little patch. So I'm going to leave it here and scoot over and find another place to put these last 3 saffron bulbs. Look at that growth. Wow. Now that these bulbs have all been planted and I've topped this pot off with leaves, I'm going to finish it off with some compost before I move on to the next container. This compost, though, is so beautiful, black and rich. It is giving me life. All tucked in. Once the winter sets in, the coleus and the ashwagandha will die off. I did reseed both, but as you can see, I've had some disturbance. I'll have to do it again. In this container, I have some comfrey and I have reseeded a clematis towards the back. So I'm only going to place some bulbs along the center of this pot and over towards the side. Now that I've removed the soil that I need to remove and I have the proper depth, I'm going to add some bulb tone and then place my bulbs. Now I'm just showing you here in the front and along the side, those are comfrey. In the back, I've already sown seeds that need to overwinter for my clematis. In this container, I'm going to put some beautiful white tulips. I have 7 bulbs, so they're going to go in this container. There is a running theme in my fall garden, and sardines is one of them. So I'm going to also place some sardines in this container because I do want to be able to continue to have it feed, because there are very hungry comfrey plants in this container. We have had a cold snap, so you probably think the comfrey is dead. It is not. It's just lost all of its top greenery, but it is very much alive. Every bulb has a top and a bottom. The bottom is generally flat and the top is usually pointy in some way. You take that bottom and place it butt down on the soil. I'm showing you here the top and the bottom. Now, when you are placing bulbs in a container, you can kind of get away with the spacing. Usually every bulb bag or box tells you how closely to plant your bulbs. But in a container, you can place them a little bit closer together. So I'm packing them in. The kids are truly enjoying themselves today, so you're hearing them scream in the background. I do apologize. A couple of these bulbs have some little bulbils on them, and so I am just going to put those inside of the pot. Now, my tulips didn't have any bulbils, but sometimes you'll have bulbs that have little baby bulbs attached to them. No worries, plant those as well. Now that the tulips have been seeded nicely, I am going to do a little bit of a lasagna method and plant another bulb in here. That other bulb is alliums. I have some mixed alliums still, so they're going to go in this container as well. See, I had plenty. Sometimes it's not always easy to pinpoint which is the bottom and which is the top, but this one I'm showing you the bottom and the top, and I'm putting that bottom butt down on the soil. I'm very excited to see the growth that's going to come out of this pot in the spring. I'm really hopeful that the clematis seeds that I've sown are going to get the right amount of cold stratification so that they can germinate. I love the clematis that I have. It's called, I believe, an O. Henry. I'll put that information in the description box below, and I'll try to insert a picture. It is so beautiful, and I didn't have it this year, but I did collect seeds from the year before, so I'm trying to get it in the garden again for 2022. Fingers crossed that I will have all my bulbs come up as well as the seeds that I am sowing that need cold stratification. 2022 is going to be the year of flowers, flowers, flowers in my garden. Now that I've planted my bulbs and I've given it some bulb tone, I'm just going to cover it back up with some compost and top it up with some leaves. Now I know this pot is split and looking real busted, but I'm not ready to get rid of it yet, because when I do finally, or eventually I should say, move to the homestead, all of the containers that have sustained damage from being out in the sun, I will be getting rid of those. But for right now, they're still usable, and they're not noticeable in the summertime once they're full of life. So I'm going to keep them up until it's time to move. So disregard the broken pot. It is what it is. Oopsie. Once you've planted all of your bulbs, just give it a good pat, firm that soil around, and then top it up with some mulch and leaves. I have one final container of the night. Over here, I have some dianthus. Over here, I don't know what that is. I dug that out of the front garden. It's pretty. It's a spiller, so it's going to stay. It has that little blue, that royal blue flower. So it's going to stay in this container. Now, I'm going to place this bulb right down the center. It is going to grow a little taller than what's already in here. So it's going to be my thriller in this container. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but look how deep and dark and beautiful this soil is. I just love it when I come across a container and the soil is exactly what it needs to be. As with all the rest of my containers that I've placed bulbs in, I will also be adding bulb tone here as well to give those bulbs the best start they can have when it's time for them to start growing. This is a first for me, adding iris bulbs to the garden. They are a late spring germinating flower. They get relatively tall, so I'm excited to see if they're going to come up and what they do for me. Just like all the other bulbs I've planted tonight, this has begun to sprout as well. All of my bulbs are confused. We've had hot weather, cool weather, cold weather, and warm weather, and they just don't know what to do, so they're beginning to sprout. I am really hoping that all this weather fluctuation is not going to kill my bulbs. Now, this is what I mean by bulbils. There are little baby irises on this bulb, so I'm going to place them in the pot in the hopes that they're going to grow up and give me some beautiful irises as well. More babies. Last but not least, more babies. it's time to cover them up with a little bit of my homegrown compost and put them to bed. How y'all liking that beautiful, rich, dark compost? Isn't it pretty? I made that. If you're interested in how I make my compost, I'll do my best and put an iCard so you guys can see my composting videos so that you can make compost for yourself. And of course, the theme, I am topping it up with fall leaves. The wind was blowing so high today, we had wind from 35 to 50 miles an hour. So all of these leaves blew out. I'll have to put them back in, but this container got leaves as well. There's nothing like adding leaves to all of your fall containers to include your compost to enrich the soil in your containers. Thank you for watching. If you like it, you know what to do. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.